This is Gemara in Kiddushin, Daf Nun Zayin, and once again, we like to dedicate the schos of all the Torah that we learned together. Should be an incredible schos for all of Klal Yisrael, all of Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael, Hanasunim Basaro Vashivya and Eretz Yisrael. Ksiyat D'Shmaya, the schos HaTorah should have the ultimate power to be Megan and to be Shomer on all of Klal Yisrael. And we pick it up on Nun Zayin Amud Aleph. We're about 8 to 10 lines down. The first one line is Be'egla Arufa. And we're in the middle of discussing that which began on the previous Mishnah, which is all the entities, which are Isurei Hana. And the Mishnah taught us that if you try to Mekadesh, Ba'arla, Klayakara, and Sharnitzka, Egla Arufa, Sepayir Mitzaira, etc. In all of these cases, Einai Mikudeshes, the Kiddushin is not valid. And the common denominator was that they are all Asar Behana. In the previous daf, we dealt with the first of the list, Arla, Klayakarin, and Sharanisko. Now we continue with the source for Egla Arufa and Zayin Amud Aleph. Again, the 2 dots, 8 lines down. Menalan Amri Dvei Rav Yanai, the yeshiva of Rav Yanai taught the source to know that Egla Arufa is Asar Behana. Kapara kisivva kikachim. It says kapara like kachim, therefore just like kachim is asar bahana, so too is egla arufa. Sipayrim mitzaira, the sipayrim, the birds, the karbana is waiting for the carbon of a mitzaira. Minalan, says the Gemara, the Tanin Verav Yishmael, Nemar machsher u'mechaber mibifnim, v'nemar machsher u'mechaber mibachotz. The terminology of machsher, qualifying, machaber, providing a kapara and atonement, is said by that which is done inside the Beis HaMikdash. Similarly, it says that which is done outside of the Beis HaMikdash. Ma machshir machaber arim bifnim, just like that which it says it inside. Also a machshir machaber, af machshir machaber amr bachotz, asur by, machshir umechaber. Again, machshir kimechaber, and made the entity which is being machshir like the mechaber. And therefore the Gemara is learning that the tzipayre mitzaira are similar to the egla arufa, which is bifnim, and these are bachot. And therefore both of them are going to have the same din, that there is an isra hana on them. Itmar, says the Gemara, at what point are these tzipayrim, are these birds of the mitzaira asar behana? Rav Yochanan amar mishas shchita, Reish Lakish amar mishas lekicha. Rav Yochanan amar mishas shchita, says the Gemara, shchita huda asur. When you shecht the carbon, when you shecht the tzipayrim, the birds for the mitzaira, at that point it is asur. Why? Megla Arufa nafka. Because we learn now from Megla Arufa. Ma Egla Arufa mechayim. It's asur b'ana even while it's alive. Avti peri mitzaira mechayim. Therefore, even at the time of the lekicha, when you just take these birds to be brought as the karba mitzaira, they become asur behana. Asks the Gemara of Egla Arufa, Gufa me'emasai. At what point does the Egla Arufa, we just took on for Pashit, that the Egla Arufa becomes Asar Mechayim while it's alive? Asks the Gemara, from where do we know that? Amar Rav Yanai, Gavol Shamati Ba V'Shachachti. I heard the Gavol, I heard the line, the divider, the point, the precise moment that the Egla Arufa becomes Asar, but I forgot. But those in yeshiva used to say, Yeridasa lenachal isan hi atzarta. When the Egla Arufa, this calf that needs to be decapitated, when it's found between, when a dead person is found between 2 cities, it's brought down lenachal isan to the valley of Isan. At that point, that is when it becomes forbidden. Asks the Gemara, one second. Ima egla rufa mishas lekicha loy misra. Avsi bar mitzayra. Nami mishas lekicha loy misra. Ask the Gemara 1 second. We just said that at what point does egla rufa become aser bahana? Not at the point of taking it, but at the point that it goes down. Lenachal isan. So asks the Gemara, so why are we saying that the Tzipayir Mitzayra become Aser Bahana from the moment of taking them? Answers the Gemara, Hachi Hashta. Hasam Isle Gvol Achrina. By the Egla Arufa, there's another point. There's another indicator on the calendar, in the timeline. The indicator of bringing it down Lenachal isan. So we could say that indicator is when it becomes aser. Whereas hacha over here, when it comes to tzipayir mitzayra, it's the moment that they're taken and the moment that they're shachted. Before they're shachted, there is no other moment. Miyislei gvul achrina, and that's why the Gemara is suggesting that they will become aser bahana at the moment they are taken. Continues the Gemara, Yisvei Rav Yochanan on the Reish Lakish. Rav Yochanan asks Reish Lakish, called tzibur tayrasa toichelu. Says the Torah, any tzibar, any kosher bird which is tahira, any bird which is tahar, toichelu, you're allowed to eat l'rabbis. This box comes to include as a mushalachas, even a bird that is sent away. The tzipayir mitzayra that is sent free is also allowed to be eaten. Continues the psukim, and these are the ones you cannot eat mayhem from them. The rabbis that comes to include as ashchuta, the one that is shechted as the carbon mitzayra, is not allowed to be eaten. So says the Gemara, 1 second, you Reish Lakish, you just taught us at what precise moment do these Sipayrim become aser? Mishas lekicha, the moment they're still alive. Ask the Gemara, if you're going to tell me that they're aser bahana even while they are alive, lachar shchita mibai, do we need a pasuk to teach me, as we just darshened, that even lachar shchita they're aser? Of course they're aser. They're already aser bahana while they were alive. Answers the Gemara, ma'udatema, I would have thought midei dehave akachim. Maybe it's similar to kachim. Temechayim asiri, any animal which is waiting to be brought as a carbon, while the animal is alive, it is aser bahana. Vas yeshchita, but then you shech the animal as a carbon, o machshir aluhu, and it becomes allowed to be in kamash malon. I would have thought maybe the same thing is over here. Asks the Gemara, another kasha. Eisvei shachat avanim treifa. What happens? You shacht the carbon mitzayra, and it's found to be a treifa. Yikach zog lishniya. You have to take a second bird for the pair. Varishayna mutares bahana. The first one becomes mutar bahana. Asks the Gemara, the obvious kasha. How can you tell me that the first one is aser ba'ana? What do you mean it was ready aser mutar ba'ana? It was ready aser while it was alive. The case is it found to be a treifa in an internal organ, and therefore there was no kedusha that was chal on it at all. So explains the Gemara that Reish Lakish could stick to his guns, that it is aser behana mechayim. So how could we say in the case of a treifa? The answer is at different times an animal, a bird, could become a treifa. If it happened at the time of the shchita, then you're right. It was previously aser behana mechayim when it was taken as a sipayir mitzayra, and now it's found to be treifa. So in a chanami, it's true, it would always be aser. But says the Gemara, it's found to be a treifa in an internal organ, meaning the treifa really came first. It's true, we might not have known about it. And therefore, but it was always a treifa. So therefore, the kedusha of the tzipayir mitzayra really never was chal, never came to effect on this bird. Eisvei continues Rav Yochanan asking on Reish Lakish. Says in the Brisa, Shachatu shloi be'ezah, shloi be'etz erez, v'shloi b'tzliyat v'shnei tolas. There's 3 ingredients that have to be brought with Titzi Payrim Mitzayra. You have the Ezaif, you have the little branch, the hyssop, you have the Eitz Erez, you have the cedar wood, and you have the Shnei Tolas, the thread. So if it was shechted without one of these 3 items, Rav Yaakov Aimer says, Rav Yaakov, Hayel v'hoksa l'mitzvasa, since it was set aside for a mitzvah, surah. Shimon Aimer Hayel v'nishachatu shloikim mitzvasa mutaris. Ad kalnoi pligi. What is this whole machlokes of Yaakov and Rav Shimon? Elamar Savar, one opinion holds. Shchita sheina ro'iyah shema shchita. If the shchita is done, even when it's not really good shchita, it's still considered a shchita. Umar Savar shchita sheina ro'iyah loy shmei shchita. But the kule alma mia mechayim loy misra. It seems clear both Rav Yaakov and Rav Shimon neither hold that it becomes aser mechayim. It becomes aser during the lifetime of the bird. It's whether it's at the moment of shechita or not. So how can you, Reish Lakish, say that it's aser mechayim? Finally, the Gemara concedes. You are correct. Tanoihi. It is a machlokes tanoim. The Tanat Rav Yishmael, 3 lines from the white lines. Nemar machshir machaber b'ifnim. Nemar machshir machaber mibachot. Ma machshir machaber amar b'ifnim. Asba machshir mikimachaper. Av machshir machaber amar b'achot. Asba machshir kimachaper. So says the Gemara. Says the Gemara that this brisa goes with Reish Lakish. It's true you have a kasha on Reish Lakish, but this brisa clearly is saying the same thing as Reish Lakish, that it's aser mechayim, and therefore says the Gemara. We have a class called machlokes. Gufa continues the Gemara on the end of the first white line in Zayin and Aleph. Let's delve a little bit deeper into this brisa with regarding the shtei sipayrim. One of them is a mushlachas, one of them is shechted. Says the Gemara Gufa, called sipar tayir teichelu. One of the birds, all kosher birds you could eat. Le rabbis, what does this pasuk come to include? As a mushlachas, even the bird that is set free of the mitzayra is allowed to be consumed. The pasuk continues, this one you should not eat. The rabbis es ashchuta. So one pasuk says you could eat, one pasuk says you cannot eat. Says the Gemara, you're allowed to eat the mushlachas, the bird that's sent away into the free, sent free, but you're not allowed to eat the one that is shechted. Says the Gemara, how do you know that? V'bachana, maybe I should say the opposite. Maybe the one that's shechted you're allowed to eat, the one that's sent free you're not allowed to eat. Explains the Gemara, 2 lines at the bottom. Amr Rav Yochanan Mishom Rashbi Asvara. Loi motzinu balei chayim shasurim. Says Rashbi, we never find balei chayim, a living entity that has an Israelim that becomes forbidden, and therefore teaches Rashbi that is the reason why the bird that's set free is mutter, the one that is shechted is aser. Ask the Gemara, really? Maslar Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak v'loi. Is that true? Harei muksa. As we turn over to Nun Zayin at base, ask the Gemara, what about muksa? Now over here, muksa does not mean like we usually use the term muksa, like on Shabbos. Rather, over here, the Tab Rashi points out, what does muksa mean? This means if an animal is set aside to be used as an avodah zara, it is forbidden. Muksa v'neva t'balei chayim nenu. They are living animals. V'asiri. So how can you, Rashbi, teach me that any time you have a living animal doesn't come aser? Explains the Gemara, ki asir legavar lahedya mishashari. Over there, it's only aser for a carbon, but a head you can still get benefit. Mask, Rav Yirmiyah continues and asks, really, is it true that we never have a living entity that becomes aser? We have one who performs an act of bestiality, sleeps with an animal, b'edim in front of edim. They knew the animal are alive, and yet ve'asiri, and they are aser. Elam Rav Yochanan, rather Rav Yochanan says, Mishum bar Yochai new tarts. It's true, you found the one unique case, the case of Rav and Yirva, that you're going to tell me that indeed creates an Isser while they're alive. But perhaps that's the exception that proves the rule. And rather, says Rashbi, the majority of the cases, Balei Chayim are going to be will never be forbidden. And therefore, in our case, we have two psukim. One pasuk is teaching me the bird is sent away, and one pasuk is teaching the bird is shechted. The shechted will be aser, and the bird sent away will be mutter. Today, Rabbi Yishmael Tana teaches the yeshiva. Rabbi Yishmael will learn this all from psukim. Tamar kra v'shalach al pnei v'shilach al pnei asada. So we darshan it's kisada. Ma sada mutares avaynami mutar, just like a field is mutter. So to the bird that is sent away in the field is mutter. Asks the Gemara, really? That's what you darshan from the pasuk? Hi sada lahachi udasa homi bailach letanya. We need it for our brisa. Says the pasuk sada. And claims the brisa shliam would be off of vizu kenali the yam shouldn't stand in yafoy and throw the bird towards the yam, but keves vizu kenali midbar and keves and send to the midbar shliam would chutz lier should not stand outside the city vizu kenali b'toich lier elo rather what should you do kol shaymin be here vizu kenu chutz lechayma. So that's how he darshins the word visadeh. So we don't, the word is not used for what we needed. Ve'edach, how does he darshin it? Imkein nechtav krasad, my hasad shema minatarti. Finally, Rav Amar a different makar. Different makar. How do we know that the sibur that's mushachas is mutter? Says Rava a simple svara. Lo yamra Torah shaleach letakala. The Torah would never tell us to send away this bird. It's a svara, as Rashi points out, that the bird that is sent away has to be mutter. Because if not, it could come a stumbling block that one is going to come potentially to eat. You have a bird in the wild, which is aser. Therefore says Rava, a simple svara, why that the bird that is sent away has to be mutter, whereas the bird that is shechted will be the one that is aser. Beseir Nazir continues the Gemara about 15 lines down. First word in line is Nazir Nanzayin Amibase. Someone is Mekadesh and Isha with the hair of a Nazir. It does not work because you cannot get benefit from it. Minolan, where do we know this from? Damar Kra Kadesh Yeh Godel Pera Sa'ar Roishai. And we darshan in the pasuk Gedula Yeh Kadesh, that which grows should be holy. Ima Kadesh Taiv says Damav Yetzil Chulin Avsar Nazir Taiv says Damav Yetzil Chulin. Asked the Gemara Kasha we just saw a few moments ago. Why don't we say it's like Kadesh? You're right that the entity becomes Kadosh, it's Toifes the Damim, but the entity itself is Holech L'Chulin, becomes deconsecrated. Mikarbin and Kadosh Karidan. Does it actually, do we read it Kadosh or Kadosh? And therefore, from the difference, it's going to be that it's not going to be exactly the same if the entity will remain with Kedusha. Continues the Gemara. Let's just, Rashi points out, what does that mean? It's lachi karinan kadosh lemeute damav she'ein din kedusha Allah. It's not going to be exactly like a regular din of kedusha. Continues the Gemara Petach Hamar, says the Gemara in Imas Isa, and should we suggest that the Mishnah is Deloi Kireb Shimon? Why? Titania says in the Brisa Petach Hamar, Aser b'hana de Rav Yehuda Rav Yeshua Matir. So the Mishnah that says that the Petach Hamar is Aser b'hana seemingly is not going with the opinion of Rav Shimon. Explains the Gemara, Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rav Ravua la'achar arifa v'divrei alcohol. No, we're talking about after the animal's already decapitated. At that point, everyone agrees there is an Isser Hana. Basar B'chalav, says the Gemara Minolan, Tanver Yishmael, famously teaches of Yishmael. This is originally, the makar for this is a T'machalta, it says on the side here, but it's Gemara Chulin, most famously. Loi Sevashal Gedi B'chalev Imoi Gimel Pam. The Torah says 3 times, you should not cook the Gedi in the milk of its mother. Echad, one time, Isra Achil, you're not allowed to eat meat and milk. Ve'echad, and one time, Isra Ana, you're not allowed to get benefit. Ve'echad, Isra Bishul. One time is that there's a separate Isra to cook it. You can't cook milk and meat even if you don't eat it. You can't eat milk and meat, and you can't even get benefit from it. Says the Gemara Masista Kaitana. The Mishnah is not like the following Tanya. The Tanya we learned in a Brayso of Shimon ben Yehuda Oimer. Basar bechalav asar ba'achila u'mutar b'hana. Shimon Yehuda holds you allowed to get a nash. And become kodesh atal Hashem lokecha. Lo yisu ashel gedi b'chalev yimai. Ulalanu Oimer vanche kodesh tiyunli. Malal asar ba'achila mutar b'hana. Avkan asar ba'achila mutar b'hana. So says the Gemara, even though more famously Tanav Shmuel teaches that there is an Isra Anam Bas V'chalav, but Lamaisa that is not agreed upon by all. The Meiser of Shimon ben Yehuda holds is no Isra Hana. Therefore, the Mishnah is not like Rav Shimon ben Yehuda. Continues the Gemara. a little bit past the halfway mark. First line is ba'achila, 2 dots. V'chulin shenishchatu ba'azara. Minan immediately, where do we know that this is Asar B'Hana? Amr Rav Yechon Mishum Rav Meir. Amra Taira Shchait Li. Bash Shchait Li. Says the Taira, you should shecht for me. Bishali, from that which is mine. Bishalcham, from that which is yours. Ubishalach. And from that which is yours should be that which is yours. Meaning mine is mine and yours is yours, says Hashem. Ma Shali Bishalach Asar. Just like if you shech mine and yours, you shech the carbon outside the base of Mikdash is forbidden. Av shalach, so to yours, chulin, b'shaliv, you shech it in my house, says Hashem, the base of Mikdash, aser, it's forbidden as well. Ask the Gemara 1 second. Ima shali b'shalach einish kares. If you shech a kodesh, a carbon outside the base of Mikdash, the punishment is kares. Av shalach b'shali einish kares. So if you shech chulin b'azara, the punishment should also be kares. Amar Kra says the pasuk, no, Va'al Ve'al Pesach oil moye lo heviu lahakriv carbon Hashem v'nichras al carbon einish kares al chulin shenitzchutu ba'azara ein einish kares. So says the Gemara, and as much as going to be forbidden, will not carry the same punishment. Ikal and Mifrach, says the Gemara, 1 second. Then, now that you just said that, we could ask, why don't we ask that Shali v'shalach einish is kares? So once we find that they have different einshim, so then there's no longer the connection. So how do we know to learn one from the other? Elam Rabbi, you're right, a new makar, mehacha. V'shachatu, v'shachat oisai, v'shachat oisai, t'loisa karai yisiri. We have 3 extra psukim. Mata Malamer, watch this, teaching us the vision. Amar ki yarchik mimcha makoim v'zavachta barachik mama nata zayveach v'yata zayveach. You can't shecht b'makoim karov. Prat, what does this exclude? L'chulin shlo nishchatu ba'azara ve'en li'ela tamimim haruyim likarev. Certainly by a tamim, an animal which is complete, which is pure, which is able to be brought as a carbon. Manayim the rabbis balei mumin, marbani balei mumin, shkein min hamachshir. Menayim the rabbi says chaya, marbani is a chaya, she b'shchita kibehema. Menayim the rabbi says ha'ifais, tamaloi mar v'shachatu v'shachat haisai v'shachat haisai. Yachol, I would think as we go on to the first white line, lo yishchait, you shouldn't shecht. And what happens v'im shachat yeh motor? Tamaloi mar ki yarchem mincha amakayim v'zavachta v'achalta. Mash ata zeveach berachak makom ata oichel v'yatoichel mash ata zeveach b'makom karov pralchulin shelichtu ba'azara comes the exclude shchulin shelichtu ba'azara ve'en li'ela tamimim haru'in likarev. We turn off to Nechesam and Aleph. Minayin the rabbis balei mumim marvini balei mumim shkeinin machshir shkein min machshir. Minayin the rabbis chayo marvini schay shchay v'shchita kebehema. Minayin the rabbis ha'ifos v'shachatu v'shachatu v'shachat oisai 3 times. The truth is, we're going to pick up, we'll reread this last piece of Gemara as we turn it over to Nun Chesam and Aleph and finish the parak in the next year, B'siyata Dishmaya.